Hello and welcome to PopFlash, a weekly roundup and discussion of Counter-Strike news. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by ESEA caster and former professional player Jason Moses O'Toole. Here's what happened in Counter-Strike this week. Our top story this week is ESL and ESEA's Pro League, which we've been recapping over the last few weeks. This week marks the end of week 4 and start of week 5. So, Moses, first of all, let's touch on what we saw last week. First of all, two North American teams. So Keystars are starting to slow down a little bit. We're starting to see a few of their weaknesses shine through, especially on CT side. They only have a 58% CT side win rate and have lost 5 of 11 CT pistol rounds over the course of the season. Is it fair to say that they're just not a very good defensive team, perhaps?
It is. It is. But also, I mean, part of the issues that we've talked about that they might have is one is the deeper map pool. You know, we've talked about how they don't really have necessarily a deep map pool. And I think on maps, Overpass and Mirage, two of the maps they're very, very good at, they have better CT win rates than other maps. Something like they're getting like 10 wins per CT half on those maps, or 10 round wins. But the thing also is we put such a high expectation on Keatstar's performance this season that I think people are overreacting to they only have 2 losses, and we're talking about them being on a downswing. So I mean, that's a great place for Keatstars to be.
Okay, the second North American team I want to talk about is Luminosity. They, of course, have kind of shot up the ladder in the last week. They've gone from number 7 at the start of week 4 to number 3 in the league. At the end, they've gone 4 wins and 0 losses this week. Is this a form they can maintain for the rest of the season?
Yes, but like let's not act like they're just dominating everyone. We knew last week we talked about how they went through a little bit of a stumbling block. They have so many new roster additions. They have a new coach. They have Pitt from Sweden. They have a lot of new input coming in. So we knew at some point that they were going to struggle with the changes they were making. But also just there are 5 teams with, 5 or 6 teams within 1 win of each other in the North American division. So any win is going to rocket you up or down the standings. So I mean, like they're not doing anything that great, and they're not doing anything that bad. It's just going to be a battle throughout the rest of the season.
Now, the two European teams, just forgetting about North America for a second, the two European teams I want to talk about are TSM
Right.
and, well, I guess there's a pair, so NIP
Yeah.
and Envious, so 3 teams actually. TSM to start with went 4 wins and 2 losses this week. They're 10 and 5 overall, which makes them the number 1 team in Pro League in Europe, which, given that it's such a stacked field, not many people would have expected, I doubt, at this point in the season.
Right.
Um, Again, same question that I asked you for Luminosity, but this time in a TSM
Well,
context.
here's the thing about TSM and NIP. I mean, they've each played 15 games.
Mm,
The like next down in Europe has only played like 11 to 12 games ish.
yeah.
I mean, they have so many more games played. So I mean, their records are look fine and they're higher up in the standings. But once these teams catch up in the actual amount of games played, you look at Fnatic who's only played 12 games. You look at Navi who's only played 11 games. Like NiP and TSM, while they have more wins, they've actually. I mean, it's going to be scary for them because when teams catch up, if they add some more wins to it, I mean, those 2 teams are still in a really tough spot. NiP definitely more than TSM.
So you can see TSM falling back down the ladder as the season
I think
winds up.
TSM will be okay because they've been playing pretty consistently. I mean, they've dropped some matches recently, but they've been in good form for a longer time. NiP is the one who changed their in-game leader to get right. They've been in a little bit of slump, as you would expect, like as you would consider NiP's performance. It would be a slump. They're playing pretty well, but they're the ones who I think are in more trouble than TSM for sure.
Okay, well, you mentioned Ninjas in Pajamas, which leads me nicely into my next question. It's almost like we plan these shows, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Ninjas in Pajamas and Envious are kind of 2 European teams that you wouldn't expect
Right.
to be struggling, but as you've just mentioned, NIP are. They're at 9 and 6. They've got a terrible start to the season, and Envious are struggling as well. They're only 6 and 5 overall, which you wouldn't really expect from the champion of
Yeah.
DreamHack, the penultimate major, right? Which of those 2 teams is in bigger trouble?
Envy, for sure. I mean, they're 3 wins behind NiP. They've only played 11 games at the moment, but I mean, they're 6 and 5, and they've struggled mightily. But once again, it's they could play these games. They could go on a little bit of a run here. They're only 2 games out of the fourth seed, so I mean, they're not out of it just yet. But playing from behind, you'd much rather as NiP, be games played ahead and playing from the front. And Envy's just playing from the back right now, and they've got to play catch up really, really well in these next couple weeks.
Our second topic this week is the Alienware Area 51 Cup, which took place at the weekend, wrapping up on the 30th. There were four teams involved: Dignitas, Kingwin, TSM, and Virtus.pro, and TSM did beat Kingwin in the grand final to take the whole thing. But before they did that, Kingwin 2-0'd Virtus.pro in the semi-final. There was only four teams there, right? So
Right.
they 2-0'd Virtus.pro in the first round. Moses, is it fair to say that Kingwin have looked pretty impressive in their early results so far?
Uh, it was fair to say they looked impressive in this tournament because
Mm,
some of their matches before that they really struggled against some tier two, tier three teams, Acer and things like that of that nature. And uh, I mean, here's the thing: it's an achievement of its own that when we talk about the Alienware Cup that just occurred, we're talking about Kingwin and not about TSM who won the whole thing. I mean, they were
mm.
impressive, 2-0 Virtus.pro, and Virtus.pro actually got the better map selection in that best of three. That was a best of three that really favored Virtus.pro in terms of maps. So I mean, Kingwin really took it to the Polish team, and that was impressive. And there was a lot more team play than I expected to see out of them very very early on. So it's showing good things. I don't think Virtus.pro is playing up to the level we expect Virtus.pro to be at, but still, Kingwin still showed a good level with only a couple weeks into that team's lifespan.
So you mentioned they're playing well as a team just there. Um, are they actually playing well as a team compared to, normal international standards, or is this just what happens when you put five incredible players on the same roster? Is success
No,
almost a given?
it was the team play because we've seen remember when Astana Dragons, who's now Hellraisers, when that team got put together, there was the same kind of hype around it, the same kind of lineup that was sprung together, and they failed. I mean, they struggled mightily and they had to change rosters pretty soon. So Kingwood coming together like this, I mean, to beat a team like Virtus.pro, even when they're struggling, it takes some good team play. And one of the things that I noticed most of all, they killed Virtus.pro and Mirage, like something like 16 to single digits.
Mm.
And to do that to Virtus.pro on Mirage is very, very impressive. And that's just not individual skills shining out. That's some good team play, some solid team play. And I mean, that's just, they're looking good early on.
Yeah, it was 16-5 on Mirage, wasn't it? So that's
Yeah, they
pretty
beat him up
crushing for
pretty
Virtus.pro.
hard. So you can't, and it wasn't like some player on King just one player went nuts and just ruled the thing. I mean, Rain that whole tournament was amazing, but it's not like he was skyrocketing with like 15 kills above his teammates. They all played well. Scream looked really good, which was a surprise to me. And even Michael Ailey in there as well. So everyone had some good plays, and it was just a good team effort out of Kingwin.
Okay, and last question for you on this particular topic. So truly international Counter-Strike teams are quite rare. It's very rare that we see so many players from so many different countries all on the same team. The other big example I can think of is NOA back in 2005. They had Norwegians, a Canadian, a US guy. They were
All over the place. Yep.
intercontinental. Exactly. But they had a great run. They were among the best teams in the world. Kingwin's having a great run. So great run so far. Given that international teams have seem to be successful, why are they so rare in the game?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's be careful. Let's not compare Kingwin to NOA just yet, because NOA did end
Mm.
up winning a CPL, even from the losers bracket, the first team to win a major tournament from the losers bracket in the history of Counter Strike. But also, there's probably been a bunch of these mixed international teams that we've seen that we're not talking about anymore. I mean, NOA was 10 years ago. So there's been some more mixed teams that have just failed and they're not around for us to speak about. So, I mean, that's part of it. There's a big language barrier there, and you want to avoid language barriers at all cost. A lot of the best players in the region will be picked up and make their own team, but these just happen to be kind of these really stellar leftovers that are coming together that have experience on top teams, and I think that's kind of helping them now. And we'll just have to see in the long term. I mean, we can't say that this is a success quite yet. It's a great early result for him for sure, and it shows hope and it shows promise. But let's just not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Last but not least, on this episode of Pop Flash, I've got some quick fire questions for you, Moses. So these are essentially community news topics. Give me your thoughts on the following four stories. So first of all, Winout have announced the $20,000 tournament this September in Philadelphia.
That's awesome. We need more LAN events, and this should be enough money to garner the attention of the top teams in North America to be able to travel and compete for it. So, more experience on LAN for these teams just means better things in the future.
Second topic, Devil Walk has left Team Fnatic. He's joined the former Property Squad.
Uh, Devil Walk is one of the nicest guys on the scene, and if he's getting his competitive edge back and he's motivated to play competitively instead of coach, more power to him. We all wish him the best of luck. I'm sure there's no nicer guy on the scene.
Team Liquid won the ESWC qualifier in NA last weekend.
Yeah, and Liquid's they've looked very, very impressive ever since Gfinity. They've been doing great with the addition of Flowsick. I mean, it's marred a little bit of internet issues on the side of Cloud9, but let's not take anything away. Liquid's playing really, really well at the moment.
That's it for this week. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by Jason Moses O'Toole.
And we'll be back next week for another episode of PopFlash.